lesson, we are reviewing integers and basic number concepts that you have learned previously. We're going to start with our notes. We're going to say the topic is review today. Wrong one. We're review. Excuse my handwriting. Give me just a moment. And here we go. We're reviewing. We're going to say class. Well, you know it's me. It's Miss Long. All right. So what are integers? Integers are whole numbers or a set of whole numbers. We'll say whole numbers. Whole numbers that include negative numbers. An example would be 0 is a whole number, 1, maybe -2. Obviously, these aren't in order, and -5. Okay, so integers are whole numbers. They can't be fractional parts or include decimals. They have to be whole numbers. And forgive my writing, I will get better at it as we move on. All right, a number line. The best way to figure out where to start with a number line, where you go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or -1, 2, 3, 4, is to count how many dashes are on the number line, and then you can split them in half. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So 17 is not divisible by 2, but 16 is, which means that there should be 8 on both sides. So I'm going to start here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then obviously the 9th one would be where the 0 is. Oh, sorry about that. That's where 0 starts, and let's make sure there should be 8 on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. And then we're going to number those. Going to the right increases, or the numbers increase, and going to the left, the numbers decrease. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. To the left, we have -1. Oh, that's terrible. -1, 2, negative. I have to get better at this. 3, negative. -4, -5, -6, -7, and -8. Great. All right, so when we are writing integers, we need to consider words that let us know what that number will be. Will that number be a positive or a negative number? And usually there's some words or key words in the sentence or in a word problem that will indicate whether you should add or subtract or multiply or divide. So we're going to go through these and let's see if we can figure that out. So it says, number 1 says a 30-yard gain. Keyword there would be gain. And gain means increase or have more of. So this number or the integer in this situation would be 3. And it's a positive 3 because it's a gain. Number 2 is 8 degrees below normal. So if it's below, that's an indicator that it should be 8 is the whole number, but it would be -8, the integer. Number 3, a $75 deposit. So if you put money into something, do you gain or do you lose? If you gain, if you're adding money to something, then obviously that is a positive number or a increase in number. Number 4, a 21-pound loss. Ooh, keyword there is loss. So it would be -21. I'm going to go a little bit faster. 5 miles above sea level. Above is the key word. So plus 5. A $40 deduction. Deduction means to take away. So minus 40. 2 strokes under par. Under is usually an indicator that something's below or negative or minus. So we're going to say it's a minus 2 here. And a $15 surcharge. Surcharge means that it was a fee, like they took something from you. So that would also be a negative 15. Alrighty. Next order of business is comparing or ordering integers. You're going to place a greater than, less than in the circle to complete each statement. Numbers that, remember on the number line, we mentioned that numbers that increase or go to the right are positive. Numbers that decrease or that are negative are heading toward the left. So if you think about negative 12 and positive 5, which number is bigger? Are we losing or are we gaining? We would gain 5, so the bigger number, we eat the bigger number. At least that's how I remember it as a student, is that the mouth of the greater than, less than, or equal to symbol increased, it eats the bigger number. I'm gonna double check, but I'm pretty sure, yes. And then number 10, minus 7 or minus 23. Would you rather have 23, somebody take $23? Is that more than someone taking $7 from you? So it would be more if they took $23 for you. So I guess thinking of this backwards, they would take more from you with 23. So the bigger number or the less number, the number that you don't lose more, would be negative 7. Number 11, negative 6 or 1. On the number line, 1 would be positive and negative 6 would be negative. So 1 would be bigger. Okay, let me say this better. Sorry, on the number line, do we have to go back? If we were on the number line, do we go backwards more with 18 or more with 15? We would go backwards to the left on the number line. So we would have to go further to get to 18. So 15 is the bigger number because we wouldn't have to go back as far. So that's the greater than. It's bigger than negative 18. Okay. And then 20 versus negative 25, obviously it's the 20. And then negative 13 versus 0. 0 would be greater than. Then negative 36 versus negative 40. Negative 40 is a bigger loss. And negative 29 versus negative 28. Negative 29 is a bigger loss as well. I'm sorry. That means that we want the lesser of the two. We'd have to go further back for negative 29. All right. The next one is order each set of integers from least to greatest. Well, we can use our number line that we made up here. We know that negative numbers start on the left as they increase and go to the right. And the further back you go on the number line, further left you go, the numbers get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we want to look at what number we have that's the biggest negative number. That would be negative 9, because that's the least. You would lose the most with negative 9. I can cross that off if I want. And then I see a negative 5. That would be the next largest, or and then negative 1. And then I see negative 1 and 5. I see positive numbers, but before a positive number, I see 0. Zeros are meet in the middle. So I say 0 is next. Then easily I can go 1, then 4, then 13. And that should be simple. All right, next one would be looking for the largest negative number first. That would be negative 27, because it's the largest negative number, but that means that you lose the most. So it's the least. Then we have negative 24. And then I see negative 11 is the next. And then negative 8. And then I see positive 16. And then positive 21. Next one would be, I'll go a little bit faster. The largest negative number is 18. Then the next largest would be negative 4. Oh, negative 10. Sorry, I saw 10 out the corner of my eye. Then negative 4. 18, 10, negative 4. And then going in the positive, I see 9. Oh, 9, 12, and then 15. Again, I'll get better with the pen as I write more. And then the last one, the largest negative number I see is 65, negative 65. Then going down, 52, negative 52. And then I see negative 33 before 31, negative 33. Then I saw negative 31. And then I see 37 is positive. And then my last positive one would be 48. It's the largest number, the biggest number. Okay, comparing and ordering integers. The next one would be absolute value. Absolute value, if x, whatever x is in the absolute value symbol, then we need to know the value of that number. I think we talked about that. We want to know the value of the number. So if 7 is in, what's the absolute value of 7? Then the value would be 7. The absolute value of negative 20, then the value of it would be 20. That's the value. And then 23, because there's no negative increase. We're just looking for the value, like how much is it worth? Even if it's negative, it's still 20, right? Even if it's somebody taking 20 away, it's still the value of 20. And then absolute value of negative 4 would still be 4. The value is still 4. Of 18, the value would be 18. Of absolute value of 35 is 35. The absolute value of 11 is, or negative 11 is 11. All right. We're going to move to the next one, and then I will stop there for today's lesson. With this one, we're adding and subtracting integers. Our topic would be adding, and subtracting. Forgive me, so I don't use up much time. I'm going to try to do it really. Adding and subtracting. Okay? All right. So adding integers, to add means to move on the number line. If we move to the right, I mentioned this on the last note sheet. If you move to the right, that you are increasing in value. So if you move to add means to move to the right. Okay? So if we move to a visual example, negative 3, if we need to go to plus 8, we'll count how many steps it takes to get there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And where do we end up? I'm sorry. It's 8 steps to get there, right? From negative 3, we go plus 8 or move to the right 8. And what number do we get to when we land after we move 8 steps? Is 5. Okay? So let's try that with some other examples. You're going to do 1 plus 8. Well, obviously, if we start at 1 and we move 8 steps over, we would end up at 9. If we start at negative 11 and we move over to the right 8 or 9 steps, we would end up at negative 2. If you need a number line, that would be a great resource to use if you need to use a number line to count. Negative 2. This is If we started at -2 and moved over 6 steps to the right, we would end up at 4. If we started at -7 and moved over 7 steps, we would end up at, 0. If we started at -21 on the number line and we moved over 3 steps, we would end up at -18, right? Sorry, -19. I miscounted in my head. 19. And then -9, if we started at -9 and moved over to the right plus 13 steps, we would end up at 4. That's not right. Sorry. No, that is right. I apologize. All right, and then subtracting obviously is the opposite. We would move to the left. Moving to the left. All right, and a visual example, if we started at -1 and we moved to the left 3 more, because it says taking away, right? A trick for this would be, I'm sure this is just review, you add the opposite, right? So a trick for this would be to subtract, or we move to the left 3 more times. So if we started at -1 and we moved over 1, 2, 3, we would end up at -4. All right. So more examples here would be, again, something you probably should have heard of before is adding the opposite, right? It's a visual trick that they do. If you see, well, it's on the next sheet, but on the number line, being able to do this on the number line is pretty good for you. If you can do it mentally, that would be fine, like in your mind. So we have 9 minus 4, I'm sorry. It would be +5. And it would be +5 because if we started on the number line at the 9, there's not enough room here at 9, and we moved over to the left 4 spaces, we would end up at 5. Same thing here, if we started on the number line at +4 and we moved over 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we would end up at -2. -28, if we started on the number line at -28 and we had to move to the left 8 more spaces, we would end up at 36, sorry. And then here, if we started at -2 and we moved over 5 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we would be at -7. Oh, that's terrible. If we started at -3 and moved over 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, we would end up at -6. If we started at -5 and moved over 11 spaces, we would end up at -16. All right, and last but not least, watch out for double signs. Here's that warning there. All right, so we write positive or plus as a negative, or we write plus negative as subtraction. We subtract when we see this. When we see the plus sign and a negative symbol next to the plus sign, we subtract. And then we write a double negative, right, as addition. Here's some examples that we can practice. Remember, if we see a plus negative, then we actually subtract. So 6 take away 2 would be 4. And the 6 is a larger number, so we keep the sign of the larger number, -4. All right, and then 14, when we see 2 negatives, right, we do addition. So I see a negative here and a negative here. That would mean that this is 8, and because they're both negative, then it's a -8. All right, -20 and -5, 2 negatives mean we add, so it would be 25, and they keep their symbol. 16, we see a plus negative, that means that we subtract. So 2 subtracted from 18 is 16, and the 18 is bigger, so we keep the positive sign. Number 17 is 2 negatives, so I add. This would be negative 29. Number 18, I see a plus negative, so that means we subtract. It would be 6, and negative 7, or 7's the bigger number, we keep its sign. All right, I see 2 negatives, that means I add. This would be 11, and 9 is bigger, I keep its sign. Negative 12 minus, or remember, if you see double negatives, you add. So negative 12 plus 3 would be 9, negative 9. This is a tricky one because you would add as addition. That would be negative 15, right? I will check on that. I don't think I'm crazy. All right, and then the last two, we have 0, and then we see a double negative, so we add. So it would be 10. And because we added, we would keep the, here, let me show you a little trick underneath how I do it. I do, if I see 2 negatives together to help me remember that I add, I make them both plus. So 0 plus positive 10 would be 10. That's what I did here as well. If I see 2 negatives, it reminds me to add. So I add. Well, I try to add like negative 12 plus 3. And that's how I got 9. And then the same thing here. We'll rewrite it for you. It's 0 plus 10. And then here I would do negative 6, and I would write 2 negatives as plus 19. And so I have a negative. If I started on the number line at plus 19, I would move to the left, right? Negative, or 6 steps, and I would end up at 13. Not 13. Yes, 13. And then the same down here, I would write negative 2 plus 23 because the 2 negatives there. And so if I was on the number line 23, positive 23, I would move to the left 2 times and I would end up at 21. And same thing here, I would rewrite this as 21 plus 7 because 2 negatives is addition, plus 7, and I would have 28. All right, and we're going to stop there. I rewrote those underneath so that you can see what I did here. I'll do this one, 9. It should be plus 2 because we turn 2 negatives as addition. So when I see 2 negatives, I turn it into addition. I'm going to end the lesson for now. And if you have any questions, please make sure you come see me.